For 356 years, the Spanish Inquisition tortured and killed an estimated 150,000 people. And the tools they came up with were so sick, so twisted, that some of them are still used in interrogations today. These are the 20 worst torture methods the Inquisition ever created, counted down from bad to completely unthinkable. Number 20. The San Benito. Before the Inquisition ever laid a finger on you, they destroyed your entire life without touching you once. They forced you to wear something called the San Benito, a bright yellow tunic covered in painted flames and demons. You had to walk around town in it every day. Everyone knew what it meant. Your neighbors turned their backs on you. Nobody bought from your shop. Your kids got bullied in the streets. And that was just the start. Because even after you died, the Inquisition nailed your San Benito to the wall of the local church with your name written on it. It hung there for generations. Your grandchildren could not get married into good families. They could not join the military or hold any government job. The Inquisition did not just ruin your life. They ruined your bloodline for the next 200 years. And that was the gentle version of their punishment. What they did next involved real pain. Number 19. Starvation and total darkness. The Inquisition had a trick they loved before the real torture started. They threw you into a tiny underground cell with zero light, no bed, and no sound. Just blackness. You got bread and water maybe once every 3 days. That was it. Weeks went by. Some prisoners started talking to themselves. Others clawed at the stone walls until their nails ripped off. Records from the Mexican Inquisition describe people going completely mad before they ever saw a torture device. And that was exactly the plan. By the time the Inquisitors finally opened your cell door, you were so desperate for it to end that you would say anything they wanted you to say. But breaking your mind was just step 1. Step 2 was breaking your body. And it started with your skin. Number 18. The public whipping. They stripped you from the waist up, sat you backward on a donkey, and paraded you through town. A man walked beside you shouting your crimes so everyone could hear. And then the lashing started. We are talking 100 to 200 strikes. The whips were not regular leather. They were knotted cords tipped with metal and bone, built to rip flesh open with every hit. By the end, your back looked like raw meat. Children were brought out to watch. The Inquisition wanted every single person in town to see what happened to people who stepped out of line. Many victims died from infection within weeks because the wounds were so deep they never healed properly. Now, ripping skin off your back sounds horrible, but what they did to your fingers was somehow worse. Number 17. The thumbscrew. This thing was small enough to fit in your pocket, but it could make a grown man scream louder than any other device in the dungeon. It was a little metal clamp that went around your thumb. A screw on top pressed down slowly, crushing the nail flat, then cracking the bone underneath, bit by bit. Some versions had tiny spikes inside, so while the bone was breaking, metal was also digging into your flesh from every angle. And they did not stop at one finger. If you did not confess after the first thumb, they moved to the next one, then the next. Some people had all 10 fingers destroyed in a single session, but at least the thumbscrew was over quickly. This next device tortured you for days straight, and the worst part was you could not even close your eyes. Number 16. The heretic's fork. 2 sharp metal prongs on each end of a rod. One end pressed into the soft spot under your chin, the other end dug into your chest bone. A leather strap locked it tight around your neck. You could not move your head even a little bit without the prongs stabbing deeper. You could not talk, you could not eat, and you absolutely could not sleep, because the second your head dropped even slightly, those prongs pushed straight into your throat. Days went by like this. No rest, no food. Constant stabbing pain every time your body tries to shut down. Most of these forks had a Latin word carved into them, abjuro, which means, I take it back. And every single person wearing that fork eventually did take it back, no matter what they actually believed. What came next went after something much bigger than your chin. The Inquisition went after your feet, and they made sure you would never walk again. Number 15. The boot. They called it the Spanish boot, and it was exactly as bad as it sounds. A wooden or iron shell wrapped around your foot and lower leg, locked tight. Then they started hammering wedges between the shell and your skin. Each wedge pushed harder. The small bones in your foot cracked first, then the ankle gave way, then the shin splintered apart. Some reports say the leg inside the boot ended up looking like a bag of smashed glass wrapped in skin. People passed out from the pain over and over, and each time the Inquisitors splashed cold water on their face to wake them back up and keep going. Nobody who survived the boot ever walked right again. Most lost the leg entirely within weeks. And if crushing a foot made you sick to your stomach, you are not ready for what they did to people's heads. Number 14. The head crusher. Your chin went on a metal bar at the bottom. A heavy metal plate sat on top of your skull. Then the Inquisitor started turning a big screw, pressing the plate down toward the bar. Your jaw cracked first. Then your teeth exploded apart one by one. The pressure kept building until your cheekbones caved in and your eye sockets started giving way. In the worst cases, the victim's eyes got pushed right out of their head before the skull finally collapsed. Inquisitors usually stopped before that point during questioning, but they made sure every prisoner watched someone else go through it first. They even wheeled the device from cell to cell, so everyone could get a good look at what was coming if they refused to talk. That kind of fear was the whole strategy. But this next device did not just scare you. It made sure you could never bend your knees again. Number 13. The knee splitter. Two big wooden blocks covered in rows of sharp spikes, fitted together with heavy screws. Your knee went between them. As the screws tightened, dozens of spikes drove into the flesh from both sides, shredding every muscle and tendon around the kneecap. This device did not just hurt, it permanently wrecked the joint. Anyone who survived the knee splitter never bent that leg again for the rest of their life. And the Inquisitors loved to use it on both knees, one after the other, nice and slow, because the whole point was control. They could tighten the screws at whatever speed they wanted, stretching the agony out for hours. Now, everything we have talked about so far was used on both men and women, but this next one was built specifically for women, and it is one of the cruelest things on this entire list. Number 12. The breast ripper. A set of iron claws, sometimes heated until they glowed red. The claws were clamped onto a woman's body and then ripped away, tearing flesh right off. This was used against women accused of witchcraft, cheating, or any so-called sin against the church. The wounds were catastrophic. Massive blood loss, exposed muscle, and infection that almost always killed the victim slowly over the next few days. Some versions of this device were bolted to a wall, and the woman was dragged backward away from it, making the tearing even worse. Records from Germany in 1599 describe exactly how it worked. This was not a quick punishment. It was designed to cause the most suffering possible while keeping the person alive and aware.
And if you think the Inquisition could not come up with anything more twisted than that, this next one will prove you wrong. Number 11. The Spanish donkey. A triangular wooden plank set up on legs, sharp edge pointing straight up, kind of like a sawhorse from your worst nightmare. The victim was stripped and placed on top of that edge, straddling it, their full body weight pressed down onto that narrow wooden ridge. Then the Inquisitors added weights to the victim's feet, pulling them down harder and harder. Over hours, the edge slowly cut deeper and deeper into the body. Some people were left on the donkey for an entire day. They passed out over and over, and every time they came back to consciousness, the pain was worse than before, because gravity never stopped working. We are now in the top 10, and the devices from here on get so much worse. This next one targeted the most sensitive parts of the human body. Number 10. The Pear of Anguish. A metal tool shaped like a pear made of 4 iron leaves connected at the top. A key or screw at the bottom controlled the whole thing. The pear was placed inside the victim's mouth. Then the Inquisitor turned the key, and those 4 leaves slowly spread apart, wider and wider. Inside the mouth, teeth cracked. The jaw got forced out of position. Tissue tore apart from the inside. Physical examples of this device sit in museums across Europe to this day. Some historians argue about how often it was actually used, but the fear it created was very real. Different versions of the pear targeted different openings on the body, depending on what crime the person was accused of. The damage inside was massive and permanent. But at least with the pear, you could see what was happening. This next one trapped you in total darkness, while metal slowly pushed into your body from every direction. Number 9. The Iron Maiden. A tall iron cabinet shaped like a human body, with doors that opened from the front. The inside was lined with dozens of sharp spikes. The victim stepped in, the doors closed, and every spike drove into the body at once. But the spikes were short on purpose. They went deep enough to puncture the skin and muscle, but not deep enough to hit any major organs. That meant you did not die fast. You bled slowly, stuck in a cramped metal box, unable to move, feeling the spikes shift deeper with every breath. Some versions had tiny holes near the face, so inquisitors could keep asking questions while the person suffered inside. Whether or not the Iron Maiden was used exactly as legends claim is debated, but the idea behind it was pure terror. These last 8 are the methods that turned the Spanish Inquisition into one of the most feared organizations in human history. Number 8. The Judas Cradle. A tall wooden stool with a sharp pyramid-shaped point at the top. Ropes were tied around the victim, and they were lifted into the air. Then, slowly, they were lowered onto that point. Their own body weight pulled them down, and gravity did the rest. Inquisitors controlled the ropes, adjusting the speed so the suffering could last an entire day if they wanted. The internal damage was extreme, and the device was never cleaned between victims, which meant deadly infections passed from one person to the next. Even prisoners who got pulled off the cradle before the worst damage happened still died from disease within days. The Inquisition knew this and used it on purpose. The cradle killed you twice, once while you sat on it, and again slowly in your cell afterward. The next method needed no device at all, just a rope, 2 men, and a saw. Number 7. The saw. The victim was hung upside down from the ceiling by their ankles, legs spread apart. 2 men grabbed a large saw, one on each end, and started cutting from between the legs, working downward toward the head. Because the body was flipped upside down, blood rushed to the brain and kept the victim conscious way longer than normal. Some accounts say people stayed awake and aware all the way until the saw reached their stomach. The upside-down position also slowed the bleeding, which meant the suffering went on and on. This method was saved for the very worst offenders, and it was sometimes done in public. The body was left on display afterward as a warning. Nobody who saw it ever forgot. This next one sounds simple: water. Just water. But it killed more people than almost any device on this entire list. Number 6. The water cure. Nothing fancy here. They strapped you down flat, shoved a funnel into your mouth, and poured water in until your stomach was about to burst.
We are talking up to 30 pints of water forced into a single person in one sitting. Your belly swelled up so big you could barely breathe.
And if you still refused to talk, the inquisitors pressed down on your bloated stomach or stomped on it, forcing the water back up while tearing you apart inside. Some people drowned from the inside. Others died days later when their organs gave out. The Inquisition loved this method because it left 0 marks on the outside of the body, so technically they could say they never hurt you. And that brings us to a method you might actually recognize, because governments still use a version of it right now in the modern world. Number 5. Waterboarding. The Inquisition called it the toca. A cloth went over your face, and water was poured onto it slowly. Every time you tried to breathe, water rushed into your nose and mouth through the soaked cloth. Your lungs filled up. Your body panicked because it thought you were drowning, and technically, you kind of were. Witnesses who watched the toca described people passing out from terror and fluid in their lungs. One historian pointed out that Spanish inquisitors treated this method as casual and routine, almost like a normal interview. They were that good at it.